Welcome, my name is Z, and I'll be your host for the Framework Developer Bootcamp. This show is for people who want to become web or mobile developers. Really, anyone who wants to learn programming will learn about new technologies and coding techniques each show. My goal for this show is to give you a taste of the kind of work developers do and the tools you use for every project. In this session, I'll give a brief introduction to SQL, or SQL, with SQLlite. SQL stands for Structured Query Language, as its name suggests. SQL is a structured language used to query databases. There are many flavors of SQL, but they're mostly the same, with minor differences tailored to the databases they run on. We'll be using SQLlite in this session, a lightweight database normally used in mobile devices and browsers. To interact with the SQLlite database, we'll be using a tool called SQLlite Browser. During each episode of Framework, I'll be inviting you to follow along with me. As you're watching, don't be afraid to pause the video, or watch more than once, so you can enter the code or type in the commands right along with me. Thanks for watching Framework. Let's get started. So, this is what the tool looks like. A simple user interface to allow you to interact with a SQLlite database. So the first thing we're going to do is to create a new database. So to create a new database, we simply click the New Database button on the top left-hand side of the corner. We're going to call it Docs, because we're going to create a database of docs. And I'm going to save it on the desktop here. So go ahead and click Save. And now, once you click Save, there is a pop-up that shows up that says Edit Table Definition. If it doesn't show up for you, you can simply get that by clicking Create Table. So our first table is going to be a docs table. So in the field here, we're going to put docs. And notice that as we type in the name here, and also as we add fields, there are SQL that are automatically generated for us. That's the beauty of a software like SQLlite, because it takes care of the SQL generation. We'll first use the tool to generate the SQL, and then later on we'll write the SQLs ourselves to do all the things that we're doing right now. Okay, so once we've given the table a name, let's add some fields to it. So the first field we're going to add is the ID field. We're going to click Add Field. We're going to type in ID for the name. For the type, we're going to stick with the default integer. We're going to check the PK column, which stands for primary key, as well as the AI column, which stands for auto increment. So what this does is that this gives the docs table a column named ID. That's the primary key. And the primary key is a column that uniquely identifies a row in the table. So for example, if our doc Mango has an ID of 1, you can use ID 1 to search this table, and you're going to get Mango, because ID 1 uniquely identifies Mango in this table. And the auto increment just means, for example, right now the last doc has an ID of 1. The next doc that you add to this table is going to automatically increment and get a value of 2. And the one after that, 3, and etc. And next, we're going to add another field called Name. For this field, we're going to change the type to text. We don't need that to be a primary key, because there could be 2 dogs named Mango or Rosie. So this is not unique. Nor are we going to pick auto increment, because this is not a number that we want to increment. And the last thing we're going to do is to add an age field. Type in age in the name, and then for the type we're going to choose integer. We don't need it to be primary key or auto increment either, because age is going to get its custom value, its own custom value. Okay, so once we've set it up, notice that the create table SQL is generated for us automatically by this tool. So once we're done, click OK. And we have our docs table. we could take a look at the table by going to the Browse Data tab. Here, you notice a column here, ID, name, and age, and there's no data, which is okay for now because we haven't created anything yet. So the next thing we're going to do is to do exactly what we just did, except we're going to write the SQL ourselves. To do that, go to the Execute SQL tab, and here's where we could write our SQL and run it in this tool. So now we're going to create another table called breeds, which is going to contain all of the breeds of the dog. So to do that, we're going to type create table backtick breeds. It's important to know that you have to surround the name by backticks. These are not single quotes. You can find the backtick button under the escape button on most keyboards. It is also to the left of the numeric 1. After that, we'll provide a parentheses. And we're going to end this statement with a semicolon here. Within the parentheses, we're going to list out all of the columns that we're going to define. So I'm going to tab it once, and then I'm going to type backtick ID. And then this is going to be an integer. It's also going to be a primary key, very similar to the ID we had before for dogs. And it's also going to auto increment. And for the second column, we're going to have a name column. So backtick name, and then close backtick. And then this is going to be a type of text. Okay, so once we have this, we go ahead and run it. To run it, there's a little triangle button right here. Just click it, and it'll say query executed successfully. So now let's go to Browse Data tab. And if we expand the table, you can see the breeds. This is the table we just created with SQL. It is a column ID and a column name. Now, the next thing we're going to do is put some data in these tables. We're going to use the tool first, and then we're going to use SQL. So to insert a record into the docs database, we first switch to the docs database, and then click on New Record. And here, notice that the 1 is automatically populated for us under ID. That's because we specified the auto increment here. So the first one is 1, and the one after it is going to be 2. We don't need to specify a value for this. So for name, let's give our first dog the name Rocky. And Rocky is 5 years old. And we just go ahead and add a couple more dogs here. Okay, so that's how you add a record with a user interface. So now, next thing we're going to do is to use SQL to do that, to do the same thing. Okay, let's go back to Execute SQL. And then on the left-hand side of the toolbar, there's an Open tab. Click on it, and you're going to get another tab here. So we could type another SQL statement. Okay, to insert a new record, we're going to use the insert into statement, which looks something like this. And we're going to be inserting into the breeds table. So we're going to type insert into breeds. And it's followed by parentheses, open and close, and the columns that we want to insert in values for. So in this case, we only want to insert name. Because remember, the ID, the other column for breeds, is auto increment. So as soon as you add a new row to the table, it's going to auto increment whatever the last value was for ID. So we don't need to manually set that. So once you specify the column that you want to add data to, we use the keyword values to specify all the values. So for example, we want to add a breed. And this is just, so the formatting here isn't that important. This just helps me to get a clear idea of what's going on my first glance. So the first breed we're going to add is a husky. And then we can even add multiple if we want by putting a comma at the end and then adding another one. And we'll add one more here. And we can end the statement by putting a semicolon. Okay, simple. Let's run this. Okay, you should be getting query executed successfully. So now let's go take a look at our table here in Browse Data. I'm going to switch to breeds. And here it is, the breeds we just added. Okay, so let's say you just made a mistake with one of the dog's age, and you want to correct it. So let's go to dog. And let's say instead of being 2 years old, Cody is actually 7. So to do that, we could use the update statement in SQL. Let's go to execute SQL, and then we'll get another tab here. And to update a column, we do update. And then we specify the table, which in this case, dogs. And then we specify what we want to set with the set statement here. Set. We want the age to be, so right now it's 2, and we want it to be 7. And then we want to target which dog that we're talking about. So here, since Cody's ID is 6, we're going to say where ID equals 6. Excuse me. And then we're going to end this with a semicolon. Okay, go ahead and execute it. Okay, you should get query executed successfully. If we take a look at the data, and now Cody is 7. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to delete a row. So to delete a row in SQL, we use the delete from statement. We will grab another tab for this, and we could type delete from, and then we give it the table that we want to delete from, docs. And then we give it a specifier, a condition, where, and since we are looking to delete, what do we say? Let's just say Jake. Let's say Jake got adopted and we no longer need to keep his record. So Jake has an ID of 2. So we could say where ID equals 2, semicolon. I'm going to run this. query executes successfully. We'll take a look at the data. And Jake is removed from the records. Cool. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is to query the database. For example, say if we're looking to enter the dogs into a beauty pageant, where the contestants must be 2 years or older. So you like a list of the names of all the dogs that qualify. So to do that, we're going to use the select statement. We're going to grab another tab here. We're going to type select. And then we could specify which columns we want to grab. For example, right now we want just the names. We don't need the age here. So we could do select name from which database? Dogs. Where, which specify the condition, age is greater or equal to 2. So this is going to give you a list of all the dogs where this condition satisfies, which is age greater or equal to 2. 2 years or older, in other words. So let's run this. And here's the result. As you can see, these are the dogs that are 2 years or older, and we could double check this with our database here. So if we go to browse data, so Bailey should be the only one that doesn't appear here. And there are 4 others that would qualify for this. And that is indeed the case. So that's it, some simple SQLs. In this session, you got a taste of SQL with SQLlite. You learned how to create a table in a SQL database, and you learned the commands to manipulate data, such as creating, updating, deleting, and querying records. Now, you have a basic understanding of SQL. Having a good command of SQL is an important part of the job of a web or mobile developer, because most applications work with data of some sort, and the data is most likely stored in a SQL database. If you enjoy the show, why not give the Framework Professional Developer Program a shot? We help you become a professional developer in as little as 20 weeks. Our program is online, but everyone in the program has their own instructor, so your questions are always answered. You can try the program for free. Just sign up at learntoprogram.tv/p/try-framework. See you next time.